please. I hope he's following my directions.
Okay, everyone, we're going to get started. Appreciate everybody taking the time today. A couple of housekeeping items. If everybody can please mute themselves so I don't have to mute the whole audience, that would be great. Really appreciate it. Number two is the webinar will take about 40 minutes, maybe a little over, maybe a little under. We are recording this webinar, so if anybody does want a copy of it later, I'll have my contact information at the end of the presentation. You can just shoot me an email and we'll get it out to you. I'll leave about 15 to 20 minutes at the end to be able to answer any questions. If there's no questions answered, I will just throw out basically the 2 or 3 biggest questions that I get when it comes down to really who owns the tech requirement when building on a new office space. So again, I hear some background noise. If people could mute their phones, that would be a huge help. And we'll get started. So a little bit about myself. My name is Mike Gleason. I'm a partner director here at Netrix in our digital workplace practice. What I do every day is work with clients and have been doing for the last 15 years, work with clients who are building out new space, relocating, restacking, and looking to build out a technology-enabled workspace to be able to energize their existing employees, hire the next-gen talent, and build an experience within the office that makes people want to come to the office even though they have to commute and do other things of that nature. So I first put an agenda, then I was like, you know what, I'm going to just say, what will people learn today? So what I'm going to cover is really 3 main areas. I'm going to give a little background, why there is a gap on the IT requirement portion of a new office build-out. I'm then going to be talking about IT budgeting and explain why an IT budget is necessary at the beginning of a project, and what are the components of an IT budget. I will actually give you a couple examples of a complete IT budget so you can see what elements are involved in it and what are not. I'll then talk about the concept of a lead IT architect. It's a new concept out there. We've been doing it for a long time, but it's still, to the construction industry, it's a relatively new concept, and explain to you why it's needed. And then I'll end with 3 real-world examples of where improper IT budgeting actually impacted the project. And we'll give you examples of smaller projects, larger projects, projects in different verticals. My goal of this is really to show you that there's multiple different ways that IT done properly and improperly can actually affect a project to get the outcome you're looking for, whether you're a client or you're another individual in the CR industry that's trying to help your client. So I'm going to go very quickly. For those of you that don't know who Netrix is, I don't like to do a whole marketing pitch for multiple slides and go through this. But real quickly, what is Netrix and what is our mission? Our mission is to bridge the gap between technology and construction while we provide advisory solutions and services to our clients to address risk mitigation and help organizations develop and create the most appropriate, efficient, secure, for mobile and cloud-ready workspaces. We're here to help our clients to make sure that they're building out technology-enabled workspaces that are being used, the technology is being adopted, and people are excited to go into the office. Our company's been around for about 27 years, 350 employees, 250 of those are technology resources. I'm not going to bore you to death and go through all 10 of our core services. We're going to talk mainly today about our practice that I work within, which is the relocation and build-out services. But it's important to note that Netrix has these 9 other services. Technology has really gone across all the different sectors today. And so the fact that we can put in all these different technologies to help within the build-out process without you having to go out and hire 6 or 7 different firms to handle individual tasks is really one of the main differentiators that Netrix brings to the marketplace. So a little bit of how does Netrix do it? What makes us different? I always kind of sit here and I look at these 6 different parts of the process and I say, you know what, anybody can do assessments. Anybody can talk about technology concepts or manufacturers. Anybody can do a basic design and they can do the deployment. At Netrix, we really focus on the bookends. So we start with the research. You know, why are you building out this space? How have you used technology in your space before? What is your adoption levels that you have for technology? What are the type of technologies you want to leverage to be able to hire the next generation workforce? And how do we build up this space to make technology seamless? How do we make it as simple as I use technology in my home with an app? And then we follow the 4 pillars of the standard process, and we focus on the validation. So what is validation? Okay, I spend a lot of money on this technology in my office. Let's look at the data analytics and figure out how often is it being used? How's the space being used? What technologies are being used and which ones aren't? Do we need to do more training? Do we need to do an enhancement on some of the interfaces to interact with the technologies? But we leverage data to figure out, is the technology being used? And if it's not being used, who are the users that are not using it? And how do we get them to higher adoption levels? So at the end of the day, the client is getting the return on the investment for the technology that they spent. We do this through really a user-centric envisioning process. And what I mean by that is every new build-out that we're involved in, the client has some form of guiding principles. They're matching these guiding principles of what they want the office space to be. What is the culture they want within this office space? And we take the guiding principles from the client, and we map those to what the technology journey will be. What is their digitization strategy? And we understand and establish the guiding principles for technology in the project along with what the company's end goal is. We understand the critical user stories. So obviously there's different departments within a build-out. Each of them have a different workflow. They have a different work stream. You've got power users. You've got people that only come to the office once in a while. We're really here to understand what the end user story is, what type of meetings they want to be involved in, and how do we make these meetings as efficient as possible. We get this data through end user insights. And so we're talking to the end users. We're talking to this C-suite. We're doing surveys. You know, we're working alongside the architects when they're doing their workplace strategy. We're talking about workplace transformation. We're really getting the insights from the end user of when you're in the office, how do you use technology? How do you start meetings on time? What do you think about the company's technology today? And then what would you like to see within the technology of the new space? And then from there, we develop technology concepts with high-level budgets. We understand some companies have a lot of money to spend on technology and some don't. So we give them good, better, best scenarios when it comes down to the technology. And if they choose a good scenario, and maybe they want to go to a best scenario down the road, make sure that we are aligning to the foundation of where they want to go to so that they don't have to do a massive overhaul down the road to get the technology they want when the budget comes free. And then it goes back to that adoption principle I talked about. How do we measure success? What is the criteria for success? Is 30% adoption okay? Is 50% okay? You know, what is the metrics that we're going to leverage to make sure we're getting a return on investment, that the technology the client spent their hard-earned money for is in the space? So I'm kind of jumping into my first principle here. So when we talk about why technology ownership is such a challenge today, we got to take a step back. And we have to understand, how do we get to this point? Obviously, all of us have smartphones in our pockets, so we understand technology, and our homes are decked out with technology. But unfortunately, when you get to an office most of these days, the technology still takes a team of IT people to run. So why has it taken so long, and what's the challenge? And the first is there's really 3 gaps. The first gap comes with the construction process. You know, anybody that's in the construction industry or build-out industry, they understand that IT is typically, historically, been put at the end. My favorite story was we were working on a new corporate headquarters. It was a 3-year project, and they were very much about, we need to build this with technology first. We cannot hire the next 100 years of employees if we're not talking about technology first. So when they did the groundbreaking ceremony and the ribbon cutting, the chief innovation officer for the company was there. And he happened to be standing next to the land developer. And the land developer goes, "Oh, hello, so-and-so. What's your name? What do you do?" He goes, "Well, I'm the chief innovation officer. I'm here to make sure that from the day we move the dirt to the day the people are involved, technology is here." And he goes, "Wow. We usually don't talk to you tech geeks to the end of the project." And he kind of laughed and he said, "Yes, you're right. Historically, that's the way things have been done, but we're going to spend $1 billion on this project, and it's going to be run with technology first." So the construction industry is very slow to change and understand technology. I'm starting to see a lot of progress in the area, but that's one of the main gaps we see is because the overall construction process has historically put technology at the end. The second one is what I call the hot potato. I can't tell you how many construction meetings I've been in or beginning of projects where you've got a GC, an architect, an MEP, the client, and they're all just like, okay, who's going to handle IT? Well, we'll handle this portion of IT. The client will handle that portion of IT, and someone else handles this portion of IT. And nobody wants to own the technology. No one wants to be the person that's in charge and saying, I'm the person that is going to be the lead IT architect. I'm the individual that's in charge of all the then technology work stacks. Believe me, it doesn't matter if you're a GC, if you're an architect, whoever you are. They don't want to be in charge of technology, but everybody's getting dragged into it. So the second gap we see is the lack of ownership or the expectation of ownership that all the IT, the client's IT department understands how to do these things, which is very difficult. As we know, people don't build out new spaces and don't move, every couple of years. So the IT departments that we work with, their job is to maintain systems, to work on profit-producing projects, and leverage technology for their company. They haven't been involved in construction projects before. They don't understand what it's like for certain things that are outside of their realm. And so they're stuck in this gap too. And it leads me to gap 3. There's a gap within the corporate IT environment when it comes to workspace transformation. What happens here is it's all driven by an end user experience, and there's a large lack today of the word that they're using in the industry called consumerization of IT. And I'll give you an example. So I was speaking at a Office of the Future event on a panel in Phoenix a couple months ago, and I'm on stage with a broker, a developer, a financier, project manager, and I was there to talk about technology in the new workspace. And I said, okay, let me start off with a question. I said, how many people, keep your hands up, and there's about 300-400 people in the crowd, how many people have either FaceTime, Google Hangouts with a relative? And everybody raises their hand. I've done it. I said, okay, keep your hands up. Number 2, how many people, keep your hands up, if you can walk into your company's boardroom, conference room, and you can start a video conference with somebody, you can get the audio to work, and you can start the meeting on time without going to IT first or having IT there. And everybody's hand came down. And I said, that's a problem. Because the end users, the millennials, the people that want the technology in the workspace, they're used to doing I tap one app, I tap one icon, I launch a video conference, it works. Why do I have to walk into an office and it takes 9 to 10 minutes to start a meeting and get everybody on the same page with technology? When I'm in my home, I could do it with one click. And the technology is there today for the corporate environment. You can do that. There's just these gaps that I've talked about. And what happens with these gaps? When you're not evolving and really leveraging the technologies that are here today, incorporating them with an end user experience, you get low adoption rates, which turn into a low return on investment. So now that I've talked about the gaps and how we got to this point, I want to talk a little bit about the importance of IT budgeting. And the biggest thing I want to start off with is these are facts. So why is IT budgeting important? Number 1, only 31% of CRE projects in the last 3 years came within 10% of the budget. I actually think that's kind of high. We see them all over the place, especially when it comes to IT, because it's not done properly from day one. 84% of companies fail at digital transformation. You hear about every single company. Hey, I'm a manufacturing company. They said it 10 years ago. They go, well, actually, we're a technology company today. We use technology. We're on this digital transformation journey. A lot of people know what the concept is, and they think by building out a new office space, we'll go paperless. We'll do all these things, and that will help us with the digital transformation journey. There's a lot more that goes into it, and that's why so many companies fail. If they don't budget for it correctly, they don't understand all the technology work stacks, and they don't have an individual that's actually managing this process. 1 in 3 millennials said they would prioritize device flexibility, social media, and work mobility over salary accepting a job offer. Believe me, we see this every day. I remember when I asked one of my clients, they'd been in this space for 50 years, why are you moving? They said, take a walk with me. And I walked around their office, high cubes, desktop printers, no collaboration areas, terrible wireless. You know, you want to see a video conference? Come here, go into the room. There's a binder with 5 pages, and you got to call IT 3 days before. He goes, if I'm 22 and I hear about all these co-working spaces and startups, and I'm going to go work for Google or Apple or Facebook, why would they come work at a company like this when this is how we operate? So that's why we're building out a new space. So they're competing with everybody else out there, and they're competing for a workforce that's been using technology since day one. So technology is huge. 68% of IT projects fail adopted by the end user. That is very, very true. We see it all the time. It goes back to my joke about you can FaceTime with somebody when you walk in the office. No one knows how to use the technology without having IT. But we don't have IT people within our homes. They fail because they don't involve the end user from day one, or they're not budgeted correctly. And then the last point is over 50% of meetings start late or not at all because of technology-related issues. Funny story that I'll tell you, that I was on a meeting about a month ago down in Houston with a very large oil and gas company. Huge campus, 5,000 employees. I walked and met with them. We walked up and down their hallways to try to find a conference room. That took 4 minutes. When we got to a conference room, there's about 10 cables on the table. And they said, okay, let me try to figure out, what do you have? Do you have HDMI? So they couldn't figure out how to present. And it took 12 minutes before we actually even started the meeting or we got things up and running. And I asked them, I said, plain and simple, is this common for you guys? I said, because industry averages meetings start 9 to 12 minutes late. And the woman in the room laughed at me and she goes, have you worked here before? And I said, no. She goes, because we're at 12 minutes late today. And I looked at her and I kind of laughed. And she goes, don't do it. She goes, don't do it. I go, well, what am I doing? She goes, you're adding up how many people are on this campus. You're using a base what their average median salary is, and you're figuring out how much it costs us for starting meetings 9 to 12 minutes late. I said, yeah, that's exactly what I'm doing. She said it's about $80 million. I said, wow. I go, how are you going to fix it? She goes, we have some ideas, but that's why we're talking to people like you. So if this happens to you in your company, believe me, it's happening to the largest of the largest companies out there. It needs to be budgeted correctly. So I want to talk a little bit about what are the top reasons why IT budgeting is essential from the beginning of the project. So when you're looking for space, typically you get an MEP on board, you get an architect on board. That is the time you're looking at different spaces and you can negotiate for the client to really get the TI dollars. If you're working with a company that can help you get a proper IT budget, we've seen it all the time. You can actually leverage that when you're looking at different spaces to be able to raise it and get technology put in for TI dollars other than your traditional things like cabling. Because cabling isn't just what runs an office today. There's many, many other tech work stacks that have to be there to give the client a real technology-enabled workspace vision and experience. Typically, the IT budget is left to the client's IT staff, which is opposite of their job. I talked before. Their job is to maintain systems. None of your clients has had the guy that was there that installed the first computer and knows how everything works and how everything is budgeted. And so their job is to maintain the systems, work on profitable projects, and leverage technology for their company. It's not to figure out, the 10 to 15 different technology work stacks, how to budget them, and how to give a good, better, best scenario. Ultimately, when you do IT budgeting ahead of time from the beginning, you're going to reduce change orders. You're going to reduce revisions and space plan drawings, and you're going to stop any last-second budget cost-cutting exercises because people didn't think about it. I see it all the time where even when we do proper IT budgeting, they come back and say, we got to cut budget, we got to cut this, we got to cut that. And they say, well, we got to cut the IT budget by 20%. I go, well, what's the point of having a $10,000 conference room table if nobody knows how to use the technology in a room? Because last time meetings I've been in, you need to use technology. So if you're going to cut budgets, cut it in other areas, not where areas that people are inefficient because the technology doesn't work. And then lastly, negotiation with hardware, software, X as a service partners. So one of the things that's really key if you do an IT budget correctly, you can leverage the buying power because you're not moving all the time. So you're buying in very mass volume quantities and you're doing standardizations. So you can work on negotiating the costs way down on technology if you start from the beginning. The minute any type of IT manufacturer finds out you're doing a new build out, they know you're going to be spending millions of dollars, so they're going to try and sell you as much as possible. But if you have a solid budget and you work with somebody who understands how to do IT budgeting, you can get the best discounts of all time because they know that client will not be making that type of volume purchase for probably another 10 to 20 years. So here's an example of a recent project we did for proper IT budgeting. And we were contracted to do the IT budgeting. It was quick. It was a 2 to 3 week exercise for the 10 technology work stacks. And we went through all of them. So for the ones you see on the screen, it was, okay, let's understand the logical designs. Let's understand the wireless. Let's understand the telephony. Let's look at it first. Can this be done as a service? Can we move this to an OpEx instead of a CapEx? What is the solution package? How much is licensing? How much is maintenance? How much is professional services? We get into those types of details and then give them good, better, best so that they can then go back and figure out, okay, what is the amount that we want to spend? But you have to do this in detail in the beginning to get the accurate result you're looking for. Here's another one. This is strictly around AV. So we get to the details all the way down to every single type of room. So we take the 10 technology work stacks, we give them good, better, best scenarios. We do this based on other projects we've done. We do this based on the types of technologies they're using today. And we also give them comments, and we let them know, hey, if you're going to go with a lower-end solution, here's the risks that you have in that, just so you're aware of that. Maybe it won't match up to what the end users are telling us they want, but at least we put the risks out there. This needs to be done at the beginning of a project and done properly by somebody that understands the 10 technology work stacks. So that's a good example kind of what IT budgeting is. When we talk about who can do this, we leverage a principle of what we call the lead IT architect. So just as a broker's finding space, he brings an MEP to make sure the building's sound, he brings in an architect to do the space plans, he brings in somebody who can be a lead IT architect and look at what are the actual components of an integrated technology design. When we talk about the components, this is just 10 components that are necessary that are going to go into a new office build-out. So whether it's UC on the phone system side, if it's UCI, which is the integration of back-end systems, video, things of that nature, outdoor, indoor wireless, connecting to our offices via a WAN, your local area network, which is the plumbing, network security, our friends at Equifax, which is great now. Network security has to be blended in with every single aspect or you're going to have problems. A network management system to run these technologies, traditional AV, physical security, and structured cabling. This is just the 10 typical work stacks we see, but we have some clients where there's 20 work stacks. All these new offices are running on some type of network. Whether it's a hospital that has soap dispensers, those are on a network today. So everything that's on the network needs to be budgeted for and needs to be part of an integrated design. And by hiring the lead IT architect, they can handle this. We recently worked on a project where they wanted us to be the lead IT architect for these 10 principles, but they said, you know what? We also want you to handle IoT. We want you to handle AI. We want you to handle digital signage. We want you to handle intelligent building management solutions because all of these are on a network. And so you need to have somebody that understands the concepts of the technology side, but they also understand the construction side so they can work with the different groups within the construction process. So here's a traditional team layout. This has been going on since the dawn of time. You've got the client, you've got the corporate real estate side. Underneath that, you got an MEP, you got a GC, you got an architect, and then all the different trades. On the other side, you've got corporate technology. And they can handle things like sound masking, security. But what we also see is the technologies will get broken apart. Maybe the GC is like, you know what, I'm going to take sound masking, cabling, and physical security. Somebody else is going to handle the AV side. And then the partner has 4 other integrators we have to work into this that's going to handle UC. One's going to handle wireless. One's going to handle LAN WAN. One's going to handle network security. So what happens is you end up having 7 to 8 parties that are supposed to be talking to each other, that are supposed to be understanding the end result of the project, that are coming from very different views, and you're trying to bring them all together to get a proper IT budget and then bring designs and keep it on time. What we're seeing when you do a technology-driven team approach is you have somebody in the middle. This lead IT architect is sitting in between the two groups, managing all the technology work stacks. Believe me, any clients that are on the phone today that have a new build out, their IT departments have full-time jobs, and managing a new build out is a full-time job. So for them to maintain and manage these projects on top of the projects they have today is almost impossible. A lot of them might understand infrastructure, but they weren't around when the physical security was put in the building or AV was done or cabling was done. So these are areas that are new to them. So they don't know. And they also don't know that how it's affected when an MEP is fighting with somebody else. How does that affect IT? So I always talk about the lead IT architect's job is to do three things. Number one, he's the glue. He or she is the individual that is sitting between corporate technology and corporate real estate and understands both worlds. So when you're in the weekly construction meetings and one part of this is delayed, they can look on the IT staff side and say, hey, you know what? That delay is going to affect us. We need to talk about this now, how we're going to handle this, because we're going to be pushed back 2 weeks and we need to figure it out. They also act as a translator. You know, corporate IT departments don't do this every day. So for them, they need somebody that can translate, okay, what are those two talking about? I don't understand electrical and plumbing, or I don't understand these other types of things. How does that affect us? Can you please translate that? Or what have you seen in the past when the situation has happened? Can you please let me know? Because I know my world, but I don't know the construction world. And the third thing they do is they're really asking for the expertise. And the expertise is, you've done this before. You know how to do this. If we get into roadblocks, how do we guide through this? And the good thing about it is, you know, the one thing that makes Netrix unique is that we do the upfront technology consulting, we do the design, we can do the hardware, software resale, we do the implementations, we can do the ongoing support. So we work with the client's procurement department, and we can help them negotiate contracts. The fact we know what the cost of the equipment is, what the typical margins are, what the services are supposed to be, we can help their department negotiate these things. We recently did a job where the client told us, your lead IT architect saved us $2.5 million on cabling. We had no clue about the different cabling standards or how to build a global standardization plan for us and have them lock in a price and what their margins are supposed to be. He just paid for himself 20 times over. That's the value of a lead IT architect. They understand both sides of the fence, but you need to have somebody involved from day one. So what are the overall benefits of a lead IT architect? These are the individuals that will give you the confidence and technology to support the guiding principles and decision inputs into the architect's log. So when something pops up later down the road and they're trying to figure out who made that decision, they will actually have all the inputs and they know who made that decision. So if there's any dispute, they can go directly back to it. They'll help the companies provide a standardization of technology-related costs across the board. I just talked about that in one example that saved the client millions of dollars. They understand and positioning to enable procurement groups to negotiate costs. They own all the technology work streams. It's not spread out between 10 different groups. They own all of them. It's their job to make sure those are on time, on scope, and on budget. Work with the client's IT department and corporate real estate to make sure that it fits directly into the project schedule. And they leverage their expertise. Now, these are the individuals that have been doing this for 15 years, so they understand both sides of the fence. And they're always acting as an advisory role to put the client in the best position. So now let me kind of jump into how we're doing on time. Okay, we've got about another 10 minutes. Great. So let me jump into 3 examples where improper IT planning got the client in a tough situation. So number 1, we had a large global manufacturing firm built on a 100,000 square foot headquarters. The budget was set, the project started. They didn't really get IT involved. They just used your typical templated per square foot budget. And their IT staff came back and said, you know what? Now that you've got us involved, we need $2 million for an infrastructure in that new building to support our business and our growth. Well, at that point in time, the project's already started. The $2 million isn't budgeted for. So what do? IT staff kept saying, we need it. We have to have it. the PM on the project's like, I don't understand if they need this type of infrastructure, they need this type of infrastructure. I'm not a technologist. I need help. So they gave us a call and they said, hey, can you come in? Can you look at the bill of materials of what the manufacturer is trying to sell the client and find out, do they really need that type of infrastructure? Well, when we got involved, we figured out the hardware manufacturer, advantageous salesperson said, oh, we're going to sell you an infrastructure that's probably about 4 times the size you need, but there was no way from the construction side to decipher whether they need that or not. So in the end, what happened is we looked through it, we brought in the experts in all the different technology work stacks, and we told the client, you're being oversold. Based on your business model, based on your business outcomes, and the growth of what your company is.
Heard it all before, though.
I'm sorry, what?
Working at it.
Thanks. We'll do some questions at the end, but yeah, if you could, everybody could please mute themselves. Or just send me a nasty IM and I'll stop and pretend I'm not looking at it. So what happened? We came in, we validated it, and we brought that infrastructure down to 500,000, and they used it for 8 years and never upgraded it. Again, this is one of the values we can do when the budgeting is done correctly and the validation is done. The next one's an example of a global private equity firm. They were moving 55,000 square feet headquarters. When the budget was originally set, we were brought in after the budget was set, and the PM had put in $500,000. Typically, they do the budget, standard things, cabling, physical security, basic AV. And then when we came in, we helped them and understood the 10 different technology work stacks and what was needed in their new facility. The budget was about triple that. And the CFO looked and said, how the heck do we have one budget for IT? And then Netrix comes in and it's $1.5 million. I don't get it. And I asked plain simple, I go, what's in your budget? He said, well, it's cabling, physical security, and some basic AV. And the CFO goes, oh, you're right. We don't need wireless. We don't need a network. We don't need any type of phone system, things of that nature. And again, it was not the PM's fault. This is the way things have been done forever. But the client CFO assumed you're in charge of this project. Any technology that anybody wants to use needs to go in your budget. But they didn't have the technology experts on staff to be able to figure this out. If there was a lead IT architect on this, it would have been resolved right away. So what did we do? What was the solution? We developed a complete IT budget that covered all 10 of the technology work stacks. Clients filled out their space, 0 change orders, and we've been working with them. That project was about 6 years ago. We've been working on them since then and continue to work together. The last one's a law firm, and anybody that's seen, doesn't matter what market you're in, you know, a lot of law firms are looking to reduce space. They used to have the big corner offices. This law firm was going from 160,000 square feet down to 100,000 square feet. And they said, listen, we want open collaboration areas. We want technology at the fingertips to be easy to use for our employees. And we want people to be excited about coming back in the office because of the technology that we're providing to do their work more efficiently. So they had hired a construction management firm, and the construction management firm sold the job based on its square footage. And if anybody understands, it's impossible to do technology on a per square foot basis. You could do that with commodity things like cabling and things of that nature, but when you have all these different disparate technologies that are being used by the end user today, you cannot do it by square foot. And so we were brought in, we worked with the client, we understood their vision, their business outcomes, how they wanted to adopt technology, and how to match their digitization strategy. In plain and simple, you know, we helped them put together a very high-level budget, and the construction management firm came back and they said, well, I don't have my budget, I want it this way, you're going to do the job for $2.60 a square foot. And I said, that's impossible, because none of it, what they want to do, can be done for $2.60 a square foot. He's like, well, I know a lot of other companies that will take the business and do it. I said, go get them. And we walked away from the project. And the reason we walked away was not so much about the overall cost. It was they had no clue what the end user experience was supposed to be. They had no clue how the client used technology today. They used a 20-year-old template to be able to judge and validate technology costs. You know, at the end of the day, the client brought us back in towards the end of the project, and we're working with them today. But these situations happen. If you don't get a lead IT architect involved from day one, doesn't matter if it's Netrix or somebody else, you're going to have problems. If you try to do a technology budget per square foot, you're going to have problems. If you don't do the proper budgeting of all the technology work stacks, you're going to have problems. And we've got 6 or 7 more of these examples of where they haven't worked. But also we have 10 examples of where they've worked great, and many other ones that have done it with 0 change orders. So where are we at? Okay, right where we wanted to, about 40 minutes into it. So what now? There's obviously a lot of different types of individuals on this call. If you're a client, what I would say is ask internal IT how they plan to do the budget, and can they leverage an outside expert who can help? And really, who's going to own the budget and the architecture design for all 10 work stacks under one roof? If you can do it all in-house, you've done it before, you have individuals that do for it, go for it. You know what? And there's been situations where we've had very large companies, they do this all the time. And I said, you know what? Netrix probably isn't a fit for those types of services. There might be other services we can do, but typically they need some help there. If you're a broker, I would say, how can having an accurate IT budget help my client into the right space for the right price? And how do we get the buildings to give us more TI dollars for technology? Believe me, everybody's given the same pitch when they go out there. If you talk with a prospect or a client about technology from day one and how you can help them get more TI dollars for technology, they're going to look at you very differently than the broker that's going to walk in an hour later for the next pitch. If you're a project or a program manager, I would ask, how do I ensure there's a lead IT architect on the project so I don't have to become an IT expert to keep this project on scope, on time, and on budget? And I've talked with many great PMs, and they said, believe me, I do not want to be in the business of trying to understand technology or be a technologist. My job is to put the client first, make sure we follow the proper construction schedule, keep costs and where they're at or below, but when technology becomes a hot potato, we get stuck. If you're an architect, I would ask the client for an IT budget and who's going to play the lead IT architectural role at the beginning. Because what we see a lot of times is architects do an amazing job of doing workplace strategy plans, but the gap is, okay, that's how you use the space and how the client wants to work. You need somebody that understands the workplace transformation side, that really understands IT, and how do you marriage the two, workplace strategy and workplace transformation, together to make sure that nothing's missed when you roll out the project. If you're a GC, I'd ask yourself how IT gaps have hurt you in the last project and how you can leverage a lead IT architect to solidify the budget. At the end of the day, this all comes back to who owns the IT requirement within a new build-out. And the sooner you get that established, and as soon as you understand who's going to manage these 10 to 15 work stacks, and that's their responsibility and you get sign off, you can focus on what your job is within that project and make sure that you're really focused on doing the best job there, not trying to figure out IT aspects that are outside of your expertise. So at this point in time, I'll open it up for questions if anybody has any. I know somebody said I heard it all the time. I'm wondering what that question was. Okay. If there's no questions, I will throw out what are the 3 questions I hear all the time. Number 1, when do you get involved? Hey, we're building on a new space. It's 2 years away. At what point? I always say, at the point you're looking for space, again, if we're going to go help you get TI dollars, or if you're past that point, the time you're hiring an MEP and an architect is the time you should bring somebody to handle the IT portions of it, or at least help work with the client to figure out what they can do. So right away in the project. Nothing's too early. We've been involved with projects 3 years before they started. We've been involved with projects 6 months before they started. The sooner you get there, though, the less problems you're going to have down the road. The second question I hear all the time is, well, we've got somebody that can do a part of this. If the client doesn't want to do all of these functions with Netrix, will you work with them? Absolutely. Our services are pick and choose. Whatever the client has a gap, we can help fill it. What they can handle in-house, we're not looking to replace relationships. We're not looking to take over IT's job. We're here to fill gaps and make sure the project's on time, on scope, and on budget. And then the last question we hear a lot is, okay, how small of a project is too small, and how big of a project is too big? You know, we've done projects that are down to 5,000 square feet. But if the client isn't leveraging the space to build a technology-enabled workshop, to get the client or to get their employees into the office and have the technology be the consumer experience that everybody wants, then we're probably not a good fit. There's a lot of other companies that will put in projectors or some grease boards and give you a basic experience, and that's fine for some people. Most of the people we work with are really looking to change the culture and build out a workspace where they can hire the next gen workforce, and that's where we work best. You know, we've done projects all the way up to 1 million square feet. We've done projects in every single vertical. So here's my information. If anybody wants any additional information about lead IT architecture, IT budgeting, case study examples of what we've done, talk about a project that you have, we can help at every single process of the project. And we can give you more insight into it. And a lot of these things we do up front, these are not all cost engagements. At the end of the day, we want to be involved with people that are building really exciting technology-enabled workspaces. So I really appreciate everybody for taking the time today. We do have this recorded. So if somebody wants to shoot me an email, I'll be more than happy to send you the recording of it. Appreciate it, and have a great week.